What is up, fellow YouTubers? So check this out. There's this video done by Steven Crowder. There are only two genders. Change my mind. You know how people do these change my mind sort of things. They go on to college campuses or various areas of the country, and they'll sit there and basically try to get people to try to change their mind. I get that, alright? I'll provide the video in the description box below so y'all can check it out for yourself. But long story short, there was this fat chick in the video, fat, big-ass glasses, buzzed her hair, wearing a buzz cut, has this condescending, I-know-it-all sort of attitude, really obnoxious person, acts like she thinks she knows everything, and doesn't let the person finish their sentence without interrupting, just rude as shit. Okay. She basically said, and I quote, that calling somebody by the sex they don't identify as is a violent crime. And I'm like, what kind of stupid shit is that? And I'm like, nah, dude. She basically said if somebody identifies as female and you call them a male, that's a violent crime, or that vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Okay, first of all, I wouldn't even classify it as verbal assault. Barely, if that. Considering that, one, there has to be some sort of physical force involved. You want to talk about violent crimes, let's talk about black people getting sprayed with fire hoses for just being black. That's a violent crime. People getting beat to death or getting beat up because of the way they think. I mean, to a degree, like if you're homosexual, transgender, or you're, you know what I'm saying, or nobody likes your opinions, okay, that's a violent crime. You know what I'm saying? You want to talk about a violent crime, let's examine the racism in our country that we've had in the last 200 years. Men, women, and minorities being treated like shit because they're a different color, being physically assaulted because of their differences. And the way I see it, I don't give a shit what color you are. We all bleed. We all, as human beings, bleed the same color of blood. So that makes us all the same, you know? Like, straight up. Like this chick on this video, she was completely rude as fuck, would not let him finish, and just had this condescending know-it-all attitude. And instead of arguing her side, she basically came off as a child when she said her side of the argument. Now, one person in particular, now I made a comment on
So if you were to intentionally misgender a trans woman, that could put her at risk of murder. You understand that? Because people think because...
Yeah, that's the chick. That could put her at risk of murdering, blah, 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 blah. Okay, if you're gonna murder somebody because you don't like what they said, that shows you have no control and you don't belong in society. Oh my god, that chick is so annoying. And I basically said it's not violent until violent force is used. And I got like 6 replies. And the one I responded to, let's see, King Cobra JFS, no, because violent intent and assault can be verbal when it shows that intent, which is a crime. Look it up. Definition of assault charges. Okay. Here's the thing. If I say, I'm going to kick your fucking ass, I'm going to beat you into the fucking curb, I'm going to make you eat your fucking teeth. Okay, that's would be considered a verbal threat. Until I act upon it, then once I act upon it, then it is... Okay, here's the problem with this. There are different kinds of assaults. There's verbal and there's physical. Main 2 right there. If I said, I'm going to kick your ass, I want to stomp your teeth in on the curb and make you eat your own blood, okay, that's verbal assault with threatening demeanor. Now, it doesn't become violent until I act upon it. You know what I'm saying? And, you know? And like this chick sitting here saying, well, you need to understand blah blah. Okay, let's watch the video.
I don't.
I hate to ruin your polite discourse, but you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting that in this place for the whole world. Fourth installment of Real Conversations. Change my mind. For those who haven't seen the series, this is just a series here where we set up shop, pick a controversial topic, and allow people to change my mind. Sit down, unedited.
I've never fun that says someday boo. And does it say? Never done it. I've never fun.
Thomas. Stephen, nice to meet you. We now have to subscribe to that, and then it gets into the idea of compulsion of language.
Okay, we're going to skip forward.
Because you're compassionate, it's because you're a good person. But, and I appreciate your intellectual consistency, but the ramifications of saying that we have to acknowledge somebody legally who identifies as a bobcat, you understand, would be insurmountable. The ramifications would be all sorts of new legal identifications that would be required, which don't currently exist. Why the conversation? I would love it if you want to sit down afterward, and I would love to sit down and have continue this conversation. I would. Well, are you? Thank you, Thomas. Are you done?
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Thomas. Thank you.
I'm Madison. I'm co-president of Spectrum, the LGBT organization on campus.
Great.
Love to talk to you about this.
Great. Thank you, Madison.
So,
my name's Stephen.
Okay.
I appreciate it. You sitting down, and what is it that you disagree with?
So, I think you happen to be, you're confused on the idea of gender versus sex.
I'm confused, okay?
Yeah, okay. So, when we say there are only 2 genders, we often confuse the idea of gender and sex.
Sure.
Sex is a generalization of XY chromosomes, so we assume that, or, XY, XX, combination of chromosomes. So we assume that, male and female comes from your chromosomes, right? But, that's really just the idea that there's only 2 possibilities of sex, right? So even within sex itself, you can be born intersex, which means that you're born with sexual characteristics of both what we would consider male and female. And then you have gender, and gender is more about a mental state based off of societal norms. So within our Western society, we often discuss gender as being binary, meaning that there's 2 options.
Sure.
So boy, girl, man, woman. However, in other societies, non-Western societies, there are more than 2 options.
Okay, can I ask you a couple questions there to unpack? Appreciate you taking the time, by the way. So what was your name?
Madison.
Madison. So let's go to the sex concept before gender, I think, because the idea of gender being different from sex is predicated on the idea that sex is binary. That's where you mentioned that term, gender binary. So you mentioned intersex. Okay, I'm aware of intersex. Now, of course, intersex doesn't necessarily mean that someone is completely between sexes. Usually they have very identifiable characteristics, like a very large clitoris or micro penis. In that case, it also affects 0.08. People think this is funny, it's just true. Less than 0.08% of population Earth. But they still exist. Let me ask you this. In human anatomy class, how many fingers are you taught human beings have?
We're told typically that people have 10. However, there are people born with 11
But you're
fingers.
taught 10, right?
Yeah.
So we don't teach people there are people born with 11 fingers. There are people born with 12 fingers.
Yeah, but we don't completely dismiss that those people exist just because they're uncommon, do we?
We teach that human beings have 10 fingers. I would wager that everyone here has been taught, yeah, human beings have 10 fingers. Of course, there are anomalies. That's the same way that we treat intersex, or these, as you said, you mentioned chromosomes, genetic abnormalities that are a very extreme case. So I think what we need to do is remove this extreme case with sex, just as we would with how many fingers, toes, how many kidneys you have, how many feet you have. There's something that's typical, there's something that's atypical. Then you go to gender. This is where, listen, I'm open. Everyone has said sex is different from gender, and gender is not non-binary. So I would allow you to kind of unpack that for me.
Yeah, so in Western society at least, so in our country, in our society, we tend to think of gender to be on this binary spectrum. Not even really a spectrum, just a binary. So you have man, woman, and that's it. Those are the only 2 options. However, gender really is more of a spectrum. So it's non-binary. There are not just 2 options.
Okay.
You have man, woman, and then everything that doesn't fit into just man and woman is considered non-binary. That's an umbrella term, and that includes a lot of different categorizations.
So how many genders are there?
You can't put a number on the number of genders because everyone uses different words to classify themselves.
I would disagree. That's where it changed my mind. I'm not convinced that anyone can just use any classification for themselves for their gender, and certainly not that then we have to compel society to address them this way. Right, I'm sure you can understand that the compelling of language is an issue.
So what gender do you think you are?
Well, I'm a male.
Okay, well, I think you're a woman.
No, legally I'm a male.
Oh,
it says on my driver's license that I'm a male.
Okay, so that's your sex.
No, I'm also a male.
That's your sex.
It says on my carrier certificate that I'm a male. Gender. Some legal documentations say gender.
What if I say I don't believe you?
It doesn't matter.
Exactly, it doesn't matter if you don't believe me.
No, it doesn't matter because biologically...
What gender do you think I am?
I would assume you're female.
Yeah, so you're making assumptions.
Yes.
I identify as non-binary.
I don't... Respectfully, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Now, let me ask you this. What would you say if I have...
It matters what pronouns you use for me. It matters how I'm socialized in society. It matters my gender expression. It matters the way that I'm allowed to express myself. It matters what bathroom I use. It matters who I'm allowed to live with. It affects every aspect of my life. So you saying...
What pronouns should I use?
You should use they, them pronouns. So you saying that you
and
don't believe me...
What if I don't?
If you don't, I would consider that disrespectful, and that's actually an act of violence to misgender.
There she goes. There she goes. Right there. If you don't use the pronouns that I'm accepted with, if you don't use the pronouns, if you don't use the pronouns of the gender I identify as, that's actually a violent crime. Okay, and that's where I had the problem. That's where I'm like, no. Calling it a violent crime because someone called you by the improper gender identification. Ooh. And I'm not saying that these things don't matter. Of course they matter when it comes to... But going so far as to say it's a violent crime if you don't call somebody by the gender they identify as... So, okay, hypothetical. If someone says they're a goddamn Charmander, if someone says, I'm a Charmander, and if you don't identify with me on that, then you're a violent hate crime motherfucker, blah, blah, blah. You'd be looking at them like, huh? I mean, I'm just saying, YouTube, like, I get what she's saying. I get that it does matter to some extent. But calling it a violent crime because someone didn't call you or identify you as your proper gender, that's not a violent crime, okay? That's not. And right off the bat, you saw that she didn't, or you didn't see it, you heard it, you know? Right there, first example, right there, she's sitting there going, blah, 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 talking over him, not letting him finish. And then she went on to call it a violent crime. And I'm like, that's bullshit, dude. I'm like, how is that a violent crime? Explain to me. When no physical violence was even if they said, you know what I'm saying? Like, even if they said, I'm going to kick your ass. Okay, that's verbal assault, but that's not physical assault. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what kind of world this chick grew up in. Oh, she's binary gender. Whatever the fuck she wants to call herself. A goddamn unicorn. Fuck if I care. I'm just saying. Calling it a violent crime when no violence was used. Oh. See, that's a fart. See, that right there, that's a fart. That makes me human. The smell of it makes me... Unless we're going to have a discussion how that's not a fart because it's just a noise, you know. Seriously. Like, you want to talk about a violent hate crime. Let's talk about how blacks and minorities have been treated for the last 20 some odd plus years. You know what I'm saying? That's bullshit. Like, you want to talk about a violent crime, let's talk about... Seriously, let's... You know what I'm saying? Black people getting sprayed with water hoses for protesting racial equality. That's a violent crime. Hardworking Mexicans who come into this country legally and they get treated like shit because that's just people, you know? It's fucking bullshit. Oh, that's a violent crime if you don't identify my gender correctly. People like that make me sick. You act like you're so high and mighty, like you're the only one who has to go through that shit. I'm sitting there going, I hate people like that, dude. I really do. They act like they're all high and mighty, that they know everything, and that, you know, it's stupid, YouTube. Like, I had to stop watching it right after she said, well, it's a violent crime. How is it a violent crime? If I walk up to somebody, if I walk by somebody, and I can clearly see that they're female, they have boobs, okay? Of course, men have boobs too, but you know what I'm saying. If they're fat enough, but you know what I'm saying. Like, there's a big difference. You can tell between man titties and female titties. Big difference. Female titties are more round. You know what I'm saying? They're not just... So if I walk up to somebody and I see that they're female, you know what I'm saying, YouTube? It's ridiculous. Like, not calling somebody by their preferred pronoun, that's not a violent crime. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. Like, I hate to be... No, I don't hate to be like this because it's the truth. Let me comb out my hair real quick. Let me just grab a comb. Like, we're taught, this is a comb. What do you use it for? To comb your hair. We're taught that, oh, this is a comb. We use it to comb out our hair. We're taught that this is a comb. We use it to comb our hair. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the kind of shit. If someone just suddenly decided, oh, if someone just decided that all of a sudden they identify as being a Charmander, and everyone has to accept that. No, they don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just, you know what I'm saying? That's the thing of it. Is people don't have to accept your pronoun or however the fuck you identify. Nobody has to accept it. As long as you accept it, that's all that matters. So someone else doesn't quite accept it, well, la-di-da. You know? Like, it's ridiculous. You're sitting there going, oh, it's a violent crime. How is it a violent crime when someone said, oh, you're a female? Oh, okay. And then that female says, well, actually, I identify as blah, 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 Charmander, unicorn, sparkly, smurf, whatever the fuck she calls herself, you know? See, I know what sex I am. Okay, I'm a male. I know this. I feel like a male, I am a male. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's not an issue at all. You know? For me, it's not an issue. You know what I'm saying? For me, it's not an issue. Now, don't get me wrong. I could see where that would get irritating for some of you out there. If you identify as etc., etc., and people mispronounce your pronoun or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Okay, I guess I could see how that would be kind of annoying to some extent. But even after you've told them, hey, that's not how I identify, and they still choose to call you that, you can't call it a hate crime. Even if the person, you know what I'm saying, you can't call it a violent hate crime because no violence was used. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think people like that have any sort of real concept of violence. And, you know what I'm saying? Because if they said, well, I'm going to kick your ass because this is how you identify, you know, then okay, and then they actually act upon it, okay, that would be considered violent assault. And when we talk about violent assault, okay, when we talk about violent assault, the thing you have to realize, YouTube, is that There is a big difference. One is just a verbal threat. The other one is actually acting upon it. And if they didn't act upon it, they just said it, okay, that's verbal assault, you know? People are way too goddamn sensitive anymore, and it's just like, okay, so let's look for a reason to be pissed off. Oh, this chick identifies as cisgender, and you called her a female. Oh, now she's offended. Acting like you just called her a cunt, and that's the thing of it. That is the exact thing of it. Is people act like... People want to act like, oh, well, you just called them the dirtiest name in the book, right? But nah, dude, you didn't do anything. Okay, you called them by the gender they don't identify as. How is that a violent crime? You know? It's not, because guess what? There was no violence used. Huh. Imagine that. Imagine that. You know, if I heard someone say that to me, if I heard someone say, well, if you don't call me by my proper pronoun, that's a violent crime, I'm going to tell that person to check their fucking privilege. Who the fuck? This privileged white girl who grew up probably in a house that, you know what I'm saying, she probably grew up and she's obviously rich enough to afford college. So it's like, okay, how about you check your fucking privilege, you dumb bitch? How about that? Oh, it's a violent crime. How is it a violent crime? Okay, did the person physically assault you? Did they physically assault you? Did they take your head and smash it on the curb with their foot so that your teeth fall out? Fucking A, they didn't? All they did was hurt your feelers? Well, shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, pull the dick out of your ass is what I have to say to that. Oh yeah, that's the chick I was talking about, the one you just heard say, oh, it's a violent crime. I'm like, how is it a violent crime? You know? And at the opening of the video, that same chick was like, well, that could drive a transgender to commit murder, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what the fuck ever, dude? You want to talk about violent crimes? How about somebody getting beheaded for masturbating? Here's a Pipe Thoughts video that should make you think. Yeah. You can't call it a violent crime if no violence was issued. That's all I'm getting at, people. Anyways, this is King Cobra JFS back at you with another video. Thank you for watching my pipe thoughts, and yeah, I'll catch you cool cobras on the next one.